Hi, everyone. Welcome to Crypto Law TV. I'm your host this week, Kristi Warner. I just want to start by giving a shout out to Jeremy Hogan. I want to say thank you for hosting last week and sharing the projects that you're working on. I also love that he shared the conversation that he had with Crypto Erie about moving on from the lawsuit and focusing on innovation. So those are kind of 2 points that I kind of want to expand on today. First, I 100% agree that we can look beyond the SEC v. Ripple lawsuit. As an individual holder, our resolution came with Judge Torres's summary judgment decision. The secondary market sales were not sales of unregistered securities, and XRP itself is not a security. Now the case is really at a point where institutional sales and the remedies are the focus. And I think John has done a show on this before, but basically the remedies can vary by the type of litigation. And in this particular case, like it has in other SEC enforcement actions, I think the SEC is likely going to try to get Ripple to pay a buttload of money as a penalty for their wrongdoing. The irony to me is that the people the SEC are supposed to be protecting, you and me, were not harmed by any of Ripple's actions. Instead, it was the SEC's action that resulted in the restricted access, the delistings, and the actual harm to us. And that's because the SEC has weaponized its authority in an attempt to stifle innovation. Thankfully, what we have been seeing in a lot of these cases are the courts kind of keeping the SEC in check. So that's because the American government was designed to be a system of checks and balances between the three branches of government, right? So while I agree that we can look beyond the SEC v. Ripple case, I still think that lawsuits in general are important to pay attention to because they are key to keeping the government agencies accountable, and they allow for the industry to fight back. We could take the spot Bitcoin ETF as an example. So the SEC has granted the futures ETF, but then repeatedly denied the spot Bitcoin ETF for no apparent reason, right? So we've got a government agency that's trying to sidestep the law and bully these crypto companies out of an opportunity. So how do we combat that? By utilizing the checks and balances, and you head to court. And that's what Grayscale ended up doing in that scenario. So they fought back in the DC Court of Appeals, which ultimately held that the SEC's actions were arbitrary and capricious, which means they had no reasonable justification for denying the spot Bitcoin ETF. So then the court also forced the SEC to approve that spot Bitcoin ETF, right? So another example that happened just a couple days ago was the Riot Platforms and Texas Blockchain Council suit against the Biden administration. Now, the gist of the backstory on that one is that the US Department of Energy had decided that it wanted to conduct an emergency survey of the energy use by crypto miners based on its own wild assertion that the crypto mining was a threat to the power grid. Okay. Allegedly, the agency was threatening companies with criminal fines and civil penalties if they didn't answer the survey. And they were doing all of this without following the proper procedure, which had been established by law, including the public notice and comment requirements. So again, you've got a government agency trying to sidestep the law and bully these crypto companies, this time into submission. So how do you combat that? By utilizing the checks and balances, you head to the court. And that's what Riot and the Texas Blockchain Council did. And that lawsuit forced the government to halt that survey and destroy the sensitive and confidential information that they had already acquired through the survey. So those are two examples of huge blows to the government's war on crypto, because when these agencies are committing this government overreach, the courts are putting that power in check and forcing them to follow the law. Now, I will admit that it does feel like a little bit of an uphill battle. The SEC just seems to double down on this behavior, right? So I don't know if you guys remember, but in the SEC v. Ripple case, Judge Netburn had said that the SEC lacks that faithful allegiance to the law. Now, as a lawyer, if a judge slapped me with that, I would undoubtedly reconsider my methods. Like, I would not be doing the same stuff. This blows my mind, but the SEC keeps on keeping on with their business model, right? So most recently, they tried to use the Wahi default judgment in another case without telling the judge that it was a default judgment. Now, if you don't know, a default judgment occurs when the defendant doesn't even show up. So that means like nothing was litigated and the court just basically had to take the allegations as if they were true, right? So this is not legit in the same way that a decision that had been fully litigated would be, okay? So this tactic is just more of the same bad faith coming from the SEC. And I don't know when these checks from the court will be enough to get them to change their ways. But even while it feels like it is not working, the courts are consistently checking the SEC's power. I also just kind of want to shift gears real quick to the second point in that conversation that Jeremy and Crypto Eerie had, and that was innovation. When I was listening to Jeremy talk about the projects that he is involved in, I was like, oh, that we could use that for this, or we could do that. You know, we at Deaton Law Firm are tracking the exposure that people have to asbestos over their lifetime. And I'm like, geez, the technology he's talking about, how would that change our litigation, right? So as I'm sitting there, I'm just thinking, wow, the blockchain is creating, people are using the blockchain to create, I should say, real life solutions for real life people. And it just is inspiring and empowering to be able to use that technology to better our lives. And it also is a clear demonstration that of these use cases, right, that we've argued about in these other cases, and the organic growth of the XRP ecosystem. And they're right. These are things that we should be focusing on and celebrating as we continue to kind of explore this freedom to innovate. And in talking it over with Crypto Law, the team and I have decided that we thought it would be kind of fun to celebrate this innovation by highlighting blockchain use cases in future live casts. So if you or someone you know is involved in a blockchain project that deserves a shout out, I want you to go ahead and email Crypto Law. And hopefully you'll see that project highlighted in a future episode. A side note before I forget. So I'm an attorney at Deaton Law Firm. I see the emails that come through. Many people have been reaching out to us about the California class action. That was filed before Judge Torres's ruling on the summary judgment in the SEC v. Ripple case. So in that case, there's some day traders that are suing Ripple for selling these unregistered securities. I know a lot of people have received correspondence related to that lawsuit, but I just want to clarify that in no way is that related to the efforts of Deaton Law Firm. It is actually the opposite of what we were working for in the SEC v. Ripple case. So those emails are not from us. They're not partnered with us in any way. Those are independent from Deaton Law Firm. Lastly, for us in America, this is Super Tuesday. So what that means in the US is that is when the largest number of states hold their presidential primaries and caucuses. So as Ellie from Fox Business pointed out in her article yesterday, it is the first test for crypto in this election cycle. So not only is innovation a topic of debate for a lot of the candidates, but more and more candidates are actually accepting cryptocurrency donations, which can't help but feel like a nod to the legitimacy of crypto, right? But what I think really elevates crypto in this election is the fundraising. So crypto's largest super PAC, Fair Shake, has collected approximately $90 million to support the pro-crypto candidates. Coinbase has also helped start a grassroots nonprofit called Stand with Crypto, which is rallying more support for the industry as well. And this is interesting to me because I've always felt that the big banks and the corporations have been able to kind of dominate when it comes to elections. It's no secret that money kind of makes these things go around. So I am absolutely loving that the crypto industry is giving those big banks and corporations a run for their money, no pun intended. But you can check out more about this in Ellie's article and tune in next time, hopefully for some updates. But that is all I have got for you this time around. So I hope you all have a great week, and I will see you when I see you.